Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier. You know, the Nazis may have been the biggest party in the Reichstag, but nevertheless, Hitler was also helped into power by the established political elite. And that's what this presentation is going to focus on. There was a longing amongst many of the old traditional elite, as well as some of the German masses, I should add, for a return to authoritarian government. It was what Germany had got used to under Bismarck and Kaiser Wilhelm II. The leader of the National Party, the DNVP, who favoured a return to authoritarian rule, Alfred Hugenberg, developed links with Hitler. Hugenberg was a newspaper tycoon and allowed the Nazis to print anti-Weimar articles in his papers. In fact, Weimar democracy was already dead before Hitler had come to power. It was killed by President Hindenburg's increased use of Article 48 and the emergency powers that gave him. But Weimar was also killed by its inability to operate now that the Nazis had so many Reichstag members to block legislation. Hermann Muller's chancellorship lasted a year and 9 months, actually one of Weimar's most stable governments. Then came Heinrich Brüning, who did even better, lasting a little over 2 years as chancellor. But Franz von Papen and Kurt von Schleicher only lasted 169 days and 56 days respectively. And all the time, President Hindenburg was forced to increasingly resort to ruling by decree. Consider the following statistics. In 1930, Hindenburg issued 5 decrees, whilst the Reichstag passed 98 laws. Then in 1931, Hindenburg issued 44 decrees, whilst the Reichstag passed 34 laws. And then in 1932, Hindenburg issued 66 decrees, whilst the Reichstag passed just 5 laws. This is why the period with Brüning, von Papen and Schleicher as chancellors is known as presidential government. And to reinforce the disregard for the Reichstag, remember that Papen's government, known as the Cabinet of Barons, didn't have a single member of the Reichstag in it. This helped Hitler when he came to power, as it helped give legitimacy to his emergency decree, the decree for the protection of people and state, as well as for the Enabling Act. But before that, Hindenburg was appointing chancellors without consulting the Reichstag. Chancellors that were chancellors that were unable to get legislation passed in the Reichstag. But Hindenburg refused to appoint Hitler, and there was a large dose of class snobbery involved in that. Hindenburg described Hitler as the vulgar little corporal. Even when the elections called by von Papen to try and secure a majority only increased the spotlight on the Nazi vote. Well, the intrigue between Schleicher, von Papen and Hindenburg only led to divisions. Papen had suggested abolishing the Weimar Constitution, ruling by decree, as if that wasn't happening already, and using the army to crush any opposition. But Schleicher, at that point the Minister of Defence, warned Hindenburg that this might lead to civil war, adding that the army had lost confidence in Papen and that he should replace him with himself. Schleicher even negotiated with Strasser, a prominent Nazi, hoping he could bring pressure to bear on Hitler that would bring him into his coalition. If not, he hoped to detach Strasser from Hitler and bring him and his fellow left-leaning National Socialists into a coalition with him. It was now Pappen's turn to conspire against Schleicher. Pappen, having met with leading politicians, major landowners, industrialists and army leaders, suggested to Hindenburg that if Hitler was appointed Chancellor, at the head of a coalition with himself as Vice-Chancellor, they would be able to govern, whilst Hitler would be kept under control. It was thought that decisions would be made by the cabinet, where the Nazis would be in a minority, and Hitler would be able to get the support of the Reichstag to get laws passed. That was the plan anyway. Papen said, "I have Hindenburg's confidence. Within 2 months we will have pushed Hitler so far into a corner that he'll squeak." So it was that reluctantly Hindenburg appointed Hitler Chancellor of Germany. So, if we are to identify the fundamental factors that brought Hitler and the Nazi Party to power, we would begin with the Great Depression and the failure of successive Weimar governments to address the problems that resulted from it, and that led to a remarkable increase in the Nazi vote. Of course, credit should also be given to the work of Hitler, Goebbels and others, but it all stemmed from the Great Depression. But we should also look at the role of the traditional elite, who had never accepted Weimar and had always wanted a return to authoritarian government, but who, despite all their intrigue, were unable to themselves govern. They needed the Nazis and their votes in the Reichstag. Papen painted 2 scenarios. Either Hitler would be controlled and the crisis eased, and so Hindenburg would take the credit, or Hitler would do badly, the crisis would worsen, and the Nazis would be finished as a political force. With a revolutionary uprising and civil war a very real possibility, Hitler seemed to be the best option. And the rest, as they say, is history. I do thank you so much for listening, and I wish you the very best of luck in your studies. If you feel you need help with tutorials, discuss it with your parents and get them to get in touch with me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com, and we'll see if I have a slot available, and hopefully we'll be able to sort something out. But for now, cheers.